It was a bright Monday afternoon when the doors of Westboro Karate Academy opened quietly, almost unnoticed. Kids were already scattered across the mat, stretching, laughing, and play-fighting before class officially began. Most of them didn't even see her at first. She stepped in slowly, her back straight, wearing an old faded pink GI. Her hair was gray, tied back in a simple bun. She didn't speak, she didn't smile. She simply looked around the room, like she was remembering something. Whoa. One of the kids whispered to his friend, "Is that someone's grandma?" Laughter followed, quiet at first, then louder. A few students turned around and stared openly. Some smirked. A boy named Jaden, the loudest in the group and always desperate for attention, grinned wide. "Hey lady, bingo night's that way," he said, pointing to the exit with fake concern. The others burst into laughter. The old woman didn't flinch. She just removed her shoes, placed them neatly beside the wall, and walked calmly across the floor. The instructor, Mr. Lee, stepped forward, eyebrows raised. He looked uncomfortable. "Ma'am, are you lost?" he asked gently. "This class is for kids and teens. We don't really have a senior class." She met his eyes with calm confidence. "I'm here for the training," she said. Her voice was soft, but something in her tone made Mr. Lee pause. Jaden leaned toward his friend and whispered loudly, "She thinks she's the next Karate Kid's grandma or something." Mr. Lee hesitated. "It's just that our classes aren't really designed for older adults. There's a lot of physical work, you know, balance, reflexes. Maybe you could speak with the receptionist about." "I've signed the waiver," the woman interrupted gently. "I've paid for the full month. I would like to observe today and join starting tomorrow if that's okay." He blinked, unsure what to say. Technically, she had every right. He nodded slowly. "All right, you can sit along the back wall, ma'am, but please be careful." She bowed respectfully. "Thank you." Jaden rolled his eyes. "Great, now we have a pink ninja grandma watching us." The training began. Mr. Lee led the class through their warm-up drills, basic kicks, and self-defense techniques. But every few minutes, someone would glance at the woman. She didn't move. She just watched silently, hands resting on her knees, her posture perfectly straight. It was clear she wasn't just sitting, she was observing with focus. During sparring, practice, Jaden went a little too hard on a smaller boy, knocking him over and laughing loudly. Mr. Lee stopped the session. "That's enough. Jaden, we don't attack our partners like that." Jaden smirked. "Sorry, I just have too much power, I guess." The woman raised an eyebrow but said nothing. After class, as the students were grabbing their bags, Jaden strutted past her and said, "Did you learn something, old lady?" The woman looked at him for the first time all day and smiled gently. "I learned you like to talk a lot." The other kids went silent. Jaden scoffed. "Want to see if I can make you fall like that kid earlier?" Mr. Lee stepped between them. "Jaden, that's enough." But the woman raised a hand. "It's okay. I accept what." Mr. Lee looked surprised. The woman stood up slowly. "If the young man would like to challenge me, I accept. We can spar tomorrow, after class." The entire room froze. Jaden blinked. "You're serious?" "Very," she said. The students exploded into whispers and nervous laughter. Some of them thought it was a joke. Others weren't so sure. Mr. Lee looked conflicted. "Ma'am, I can't allow that. He's a minor. It's not appropriate. It won't be a fight," she said calmly. "Just a demonstration, one move. He challenges me, I respond. One moment is all I need." Jaden was clearly amused. "Sure, fine, tomorrow it is." Mr. Lee looked helpless as the kids grabbed their bags and walked out, buzzing with excitement. "She's crazy," one whispered. "She's gonna get wrecked," said another. But one girl named Mia stayed behind, watching the woman with quiet curiosity. "Have you done karate before?" Mia asked gently. The woman smiled, eyes soft. "A long time ago. What's your name?" the girl asked. "People used to call me Miss Yara," she replied. The next day the dojo was packed. Word had spread around the neighborhood like wildfire. Parents came early. Kids dragged their friends, and even some old students of Mr. Lee showed up to see what was happening. The atmosphere buzzed with energy. Jaden entered confidently, high-fiving his friends. Already imagining his victory, Miss Yara entered just as quietly as before. Same pink GI, same calm steps. But this time, every head turned. Jaden laughed. "Ready to nap on the mat, Granny?" Miss Yara bowed respectfully. "Are you ready to learn something, Jaden?" He snorted. "Let's go." Mr. Lee reluctantly allowed it. With strict rules, no striking, no injuries. One demonstration move only. Break, and it's over. They bowed, faced each other. Jaden bounced on his feet, grinning. "Come on then," he shouted. Miss Yara didn't move. Jaden stepped forward. "You scared?" She tilted her head slightly. "No, just waiting for you to make your move." Jaden rushed in, not recklessly, but with playful confidence. His hand reached out, going for a basic grab. In one fluid motion, Miss Yara pivoted, dropped her center of gravity, hooked his leg, and flipped him over her shoulder. It happened so fast, most people didn't even see it clearly. All they heard was the thud of Jaden's back hitting the mat and the stunned silence that followed. He lay on the ground, blinking in confusion. Miss Yara kneeled beside him, leaned close, and whispered something. Then she stood, bowed, and stepped back. Jaden sat up. Speechless. The room exploded. Gasps. Cheers. Wide eyes. Mr. Lee just stared in disbelief. What did she say to him? Someone whispered, but Jaden didn't speak. Later that day, the kids gathered around in the locker room. What did she whisper? Juan asked. Jaden shook his head. She said, "The mat doesn't care how loud you are, only how true your balance is." They all went silent, and from that day, Jaden never called her Granny Pink Power again. The dojo felt different the next day. The air was heavier, but not in a bad way, in a respectful way. No one dared to joke or speak too loudly. Even Jaden, who was usually the first one to laugh or start teasing, walked in with his head slightly lowered. He still wore his usual confidence, but it was quieter now. He had been flipped in front of everyone, and not by another teen or even Mr. Lee. By Miss Yara, the old lady in the pink GI. Miss Yara was already there, seated in her usual spot along the wall. She was tying her belt with calm, careful movements. No rush, no need to prove anything. She wasn't here to impress. She was here for something else. Something only she knew. Jaden glanced at her. She smiled, not mockingly, just kindly. He looked away. Mr. Lee clapped his hands. "All right, everyone, back to work. Let's focus." The warm-up began. This time, there were no jokes, no lazy movements. Everyone pushed harder. It was as if Miss Yara's presence challenged them without even speaking. Even Jaden's kicks were sharper, more focused. Something had shifted. After drills, Mr. Lee called for partner sparring. "Jaden," he said, "pair up with Ethan today." Jaden nodded, then glanced at Miss Yara again. Ethan was smaller, less experienced. Usually Jaden would overpower him, show off a bit, but today, he didn't. He went slower, more controlled, making sure Ethan learned something. Mr. Lee noticed. So did everyone else. Meanwhile, Miss Yara watched silently. Her eyes moved carefully across the students. She wasn't judging. She was learning about them, how they moved, what they feared, who they were trying to be. When class ended, a few students walked up to her. "Miss Yara, where did you learn to move like that?" one girl asked. She smiled. "I had a teacher, a good one." "Was it hard?" another boy asked. She looked at him thoughtfully. "Yes, it was hard. But the mat teaches you more than just kicks and punches. It teaches you how to stand again. After life knocks you down." Jaden was listening from a few feet away, pretending not to care, but he heard every word. That evening, as the kids left, Miss Yara stayed behind. Mr. Lee approached her. "You made quite an impression," he said. "I didn't mean to cause trouble," she replied. "You didn't," he assured. "You reminded them that this art is bigger than just winning." Miss Yara nodded. "I came back here after a long time. This place used to be very different." "You trained here?" She looked at the walls, the floor, not in this exact room, but this town. "A long time ago, my sensei used to say, every mat remembers the footsteps of its students. I wonder if these mats still remember mine." Mr. Lee smiled. "Would you be willing to help me with the class?" She looked surprised. "You're asking me to teach? Only if you want to, even just once a week. The kids listen to you, and I think they need someone like you." She looked around, silent for a moment. Then she nodded. "All right, but I don't go easy," he laughed. "Good, neither do they." The next week, she arrived on Wednesday with a clipboard. The kids immediately gathered around her, excited and nervous. "Today, we're going to learn something different," she said. "Balance, discipline, silence." Jaden frowned. "Silence? Yes," she said. "Sometimes, silence is louder than words, and stronger than kicks." She had them stand in a line, eyes closed, hands relaxed by their sides. The room was quiet, just the sound of breathing. "Feel your feet on the floor," she instructed. "Feel your breath. Let the noise inside you settle." It was strange and powerful. Some of them couldn't stay still. Others relaxed for the first time. "Karate is not about fighting," she said softly. "It's about control. If you can't control your own thoughts, you'll never control your body." That day, nobody rolled their eyes. Nobody laughed out after class. Jaden stayed behind. "Miss Yara," he said awkwardly, "I just wanted to say thanks." "For what?" she asked. "For not embarrassing me. I mean, you did flip me, but you didn't, make me feel small." She smiled. "I don't need to make you feel small. You already did that." To yourself, Jaden looked down, then chuckled. "Yeah, I guess I did. You have strength," she said. "But you're not using it the right way yet. Can you teach me?" She looked at him carefully. "Are you ready to listen?" He nodded. She didn't say anything more. She just walked to the mat, and he followed. The next few weeks changed everything. Miss Yara didn't take over the class. She didn't need to. Her presence became something else, like a quiet flame the kids gathered around. She told stories from her past. Not long stories, just small lessons hidden in them. "Once I fought in a national tournament," she shared one day. "My opponent was taller, faster, younger. I was terrified. I wanted to run." "What did you do?" Mia asked. "I stayed." I breathed. I remembered my teacher's words. "Your enemy is not in front of you, it's inside." And I won. The kids listened closely, but it wasn't just karate she taught. She started helping with school troubles, too. Mia had been struggling with bullies. Miss Yara gave her the courage to speak up. Ethan had trouble focusing. She taught him breathing exercises. Even Jaden began to change. One day, during class, Jaden accidentally got hit in the face during sparring. A year ago, he would have exploded. This time, he stood up, bowed, and said good hit. Miss Yara smiled. But not everything was peaceful. One evening, while locking up, Mr. Lee found Miss Yara staring at a photo on the wall. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded. "That man in the photo, he was my first teacher." Mr. Lee stepped closer. "Master Kiji, you knew him." "I was his last student before he died," she said quietly. "He gave me my black belt." "I had no idea," Mr. Lee said. She touched the frame gently. "He used to say, the belt holds your past, but your balance carries your future. I forgot that for a long time." He watched her carefully. "Why did you stop training?" She didn't answer. Not yet, but something in her eyes said the truth was heavy. A truth that hadn't been shared yet. Later that week, during a weekend class, Jaden stayed after again. "Miss Yara," he asked, "why did you stop karate all those years?" She didn't answer right away. Then she sat down and gestured for him to do the same. "I had a daughter," she said softly. "Her name was Keisha. She was everything to me. Strong, bright, full of life. She wanted to learn karate. I trained her myself. We trained every day." Jaden listened. Silent. One day, on our way home from practice, we were in a car accident. She continued. Her voice trembled just slightly. "I survived. She didn't." Jaden's heart dropped. "I couldn't step on the mat after that. It felt like I was stepping on her memory. So I folded my GI, put away my belt, and never returned." There was silence. The kind of silence that fills your lungs like a deep breath. "I'm sorry," Jaden said, barely able to speak. Miss Yara looked up. "I came back because I saw something in this place. I saw Keisha and you in all of you. Her courage, her joy, her fire." Jaden wiped his eye quickly. "She'd be proud of you." Miss Yara didn't reply. She just patted his shoulder. In that moment, Jaden wasn't just a student. He was part of her story. The dojo had changed. The kids were different now. They trained harder, listened more, and treated each other like a team, like a family. But the past never stays buried forever. And something from Miss Yara's past was still waiting, something that would soon come knocking. And when it did, it would shake everything. The rain started just as class ended, soft at first, then turning into a steady downpour that drummed against the dojo windows. Most of the kids had already left, their laughter fading into the storm outside. Miss Yara remained seated near the mat, drying her face with a towel after practice. Jaden was still there too, sweeping the corners quietly. He had started staying late every week now, sometimes helping clean, sometimes asking questions, and sometimes just sitting nearby. Yara never sent him away. Mr. Lee was in his office, checking attendance logs, when the door opened again with a sharp gust of wind. A tall man in a dark hoodie stepped inside. He stood still for a moment, shaking off the water from his sleeves. His face was older, rougher. A scar ran down the side of his jaw like a line drawn by fate. Jaden glanced up. "Ah, sir." "The class is over." The man said nothing. His eyes scanned the room slowly, and then locked onto Miss Yara. She froze. Her towel slipped from her hand. Her eyes narrowed, and a flicker of something sharp passed across her face. Recognition and pain. Jaden noticed. "Miss Yara, you okay?" She didn't respond. The man stepped forward. His voice was deep, gravelly. "Never thought I'd see you here again." Jaden looked from him to her, confused. "You know him?" Miss Yara stood slowly, her posture suddenly stiff. "Everyone, leave." Mr. Lee emerged from his office. "Is everything all right out here? Clear the room?" she said again. Her voice was low but firm. Even Mr. Lee didn't argue. He gave Jaden a slight nudge, and they stepped into the hallway. Inside, the man chuckled. "Still giving orders, huh?" Miss Yara didn't smile. "What do you want, Victor?" He shrugged. "I was in town. Heard about some pink GI granny flipping kids on the mat. Figured it had to be you. Get to the point." He stepped closer. "I need you to come back." She shook her head. "I'm not part of that world anymore." "That world?" he echoed. "You were the best we had. The best I had. We were a team. You can't just walk away." She looked him dead in the eye. "I didn't walk away. I buried myself." Victor's expression softened, just slightly. "Keisha." "Don't say her name," she said through clenched teeth. He sighed. "We all lost something that day." "No, I lost everything." Silence stretched between them like a wall. Then Victor reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. "They're restarting the circuit. State tournaments, invitation only. Your name came up. Automatically qualified based on your record." She stared at the envelope, then turned away. "Don't you miss it?" he asked. "The discipline, the fire, the way it felt to move like you owned the air around you." She didn't answer. "I watched your little demo with the kid," he added, still sharp. "But this place," he looked around, "this isn't your arena. Come back, fight again, win. I'm not interested." He laughed quietly. "You're scared." She spun around, eyes blazing. "I'm tired," he smirked. "Same thing." With that, he dropped the envelope on the bench and left. The door swung shut behind him. Outside in the hallway, Jaden waited. He saw Victor walk out, brush past him, and disappear into the rain. Stepped back inside slowly. Miss Yara was still standing, staring at the bench. "You okay?" he asked again. She didn't speak for a long time. Then finally, she whispered, "He was my partner. My sparring partner for 10 years. My friend." "What did he want?" she sighed. "To pull me back into the ring." "Why don't you go?" Jaden asked carefully. She looked at him, pain flickering in her eyes. "Because the last time I was in a ring, I came out broken, and my daughter never came out at all." Looked down, ashamed. "Sorry, I didn't mean to." She shook her head. "It's all right. You didn't know." He glanced at the envelope. "Are you going to open it?" She stared at it for a long moment, and then turned away. But that night, at home, she couldn't sleep. She sat at her kitchen table, the envelope untouched beside her tea. The tournament, her name still mattered. After all these years, her body ached sometimes. Her knees weren't the same, but the fire, it hadn't gone out. It had just been buried. Like a coal under ashes, she looked at a photo on her wall, her and Keisha, both in karate uniforms. Keisha's smile was bright, unburdened. "I stopped fighting," she whispered to the photo, "because losing you knocked the wind out of my soul." But the photo didn't reply. It only reminded her that the fire once belonged to both of them. She closed her eyes. Maybe it still could. The next day during class, she was quieter than usual, more distant. She went through the motions, but seemed distracted. Jaden noticed. "Is everything okay?" She nodded, but the truth hung between them. Later, after class, he handed her the envelope. "You never opened it." "I don't need to." "Maybe you do," he said softly. She looked at him for a long time. Then finally, she took it and tore it open. Inside was a letter, an invitation, a date, a location. She stared at it, and the dojo felt like it shifted around her. Mr. Lee approached Yara. She looked up. "Would you mind if I used the after hours tonight?" He raised an eyebrow. "Of course. Everything all right?" She didn't answer. That evening, alone under the dim dojo lights, she stood in the center of the mat. She bowed, and she moved. Slowly at first, testing her footing. Her joints resisted. Her muscles complained. But she kept going. A basic kata. Then another. Her movements flowed, shaky at first, then sharper, stronger. Punch, step, turn, block, kick. Her breath deepened. Her eyes focused. The rhythm returned. She was sweating. Her GI clung to her back. But she didn't stop. She moved like a memory that refused to die. And in that moment, she knew. The past was still alive inside her, but so was the future, and the fight had only just begun. The dojo lights buzzed faintly overhead. Miss Yara stood alone in front of the mirror, her reflection staring back, older, grayer, slower, but not weaker. Her pink GI was soaked in sweat. Her breaths were heavy, but her stance was steady. The movements she'd once performed with fire and fluidity had returned, not perfect, not effortless, but familiar. Her body ached, her knees twinged, but her spirit, it felt strangely alive. For years, she had buried that part of herself, buried it deep beneath grief, guilt, and silence. But now, something was cracking open. A voice inside her whispered, not the voice of pain, but the voice of possibility. The tournament invitation sat folded neatly on the bench beside her water bottle. She hadn't told anyone, yet not Jaden, not Mr. Lee, not even Mia, who had started calling her Sensei Yara with shy admiration. It still felt unreal. Could she really go back? Not just to the mat, but to the fight. The real fight. The next day, she showed up early, before the students. Before Mr. Lee, she unlocked the doors herself and turned on the lights. She swept the floor, rolled out the mats. For the first time in years, she felt like a warrior preparing her ground. When Jaden arrived, he blinked in surprise. "You're here early." "I needed to move," she replied simply. He hesitated. "You gonna do it?" She looked at him. "Do what?" "You know," he said, lowering his voice. "The tournament. I saw you training the other night. You were intense." She studied him for a moment. Then she said, "I'm thinking about it." His face lit up. "You'd crush it?" She raised an eyebrow. "It's not about crushing anyone. It's about remembering who I am." That day, class felt different. She demonstrated each move with more purpose. Her voice was stronger, her posture sharper. And the kids responded. They mirrored her energy, faster, more focused, more respectful. After class, Mr. Lee approached. "You've been coming in early. I see the old fire again." She smiled faintly. "It's not old, it just went quiet." He hesitated. "You're thinking of entering again, aren't you?" She nodded. "You're not who you were 20 years ago," he said, gently but firmly. "No," she said. "I'm not. I'm better. Because now I know why I fight." That night, she walked home in the cool evening air. Her neighborhood had changed. New shops, new faces. But her small home on the corner of Sycamore Street still held the same creaky porch, the same rose bush Keisha had planted as a child. Inside, she sat at the table and unfolded an old box she hadn't touched in years. Inside were photos, medals, patches, and at the very bottom a white belt. Keisha's tiny, wrinkled, stained. She held it gently in her hands. her thumb brushing the name written on the edge in faded ink. Keisha, why? Her eyes filled with tears. I'm not doing this to prove anything, she whispered to the belt. I'm doing it for you, to keep you with me, to feel you moving through me again. The next morning, she registered for the tournament online. She clicked submit and sat back, her heart pounding. It was real now. Meanwhile, the kids at the dojo were buzzing. Jaden had told a few friends, and the rumor spread like wildfire. She's gonna fight in the state tourney. No way, she's like 60 and deadly. Mia walked up to Jaden during water break. You think she can really win? Jaden nodded. I don't think. I know. The week flew by. Each day Miss Yara pushed harder, training before class, after class, sometimes alone, late into the evening. Her movements got faster, cleaner, but also more precise. She wasn't trying to be 20 again. She was fighting as who she was now, seasoned, wise, and dangerous in a quiet way. But just as things seemed to be settling, something unexpected happened. During Thursday's evening class, a new face showed up at the dojo, a teenage girl with short hair, intense eyes, and an attitude that clung to her like armor. She didn't speak to anyone, didn't stretch, just stood at the edge of the mat like she was daring someone to challenge her. Mr. Lee approached. You knew. She nodded. Name's Imani. Have you trained before? She shrugged. Some, a little underground stuff. Nothing formal. Mr. Lee glanced at Miss Yara, who had noticed Imani's stance immediately. It wasn't polished, but it was strong, and it held pain. All right, Mr. Lee said. You can observe today. Jump in when you're ready. Imani didn't wait for permission. She joined the drills halfway through and moved with the sharpness of someone who'd fought on the street, not in a dojo. She was fast, raw, angry. At the end of class, she stepped up to Jaden during sparring. You, me? Jaden glanced at Miss Yara, who gave a small nod. The match was short and rough. Imani didn't follow clean technique. She pressed hard. Too hard, Jaden defended, but barely. Then, out of nowhere, she swept him off his feet with a hard, uneven leg kick. Jaden hit the mat with a loud thud. Everyone gasped. Mr. Lee stepped forward. All right, that's enough. But before he could say more, Miss Yara was already moving. She stepped in front of Imani and bowed. Let's spar. Imani grinned. You sure, Grandma? Miss Yara didn't flinch. Try me. They faced off. The room went still. Imani lunged first, fast and reckless, but Miss Yara moved like wind around a mountain. She stepped aside, caught Imani's arm, and twisted her gently to the mat with one smooth motion. No pain, just control. Imani blinked up at her, stunned. Miss Yara offered her a hand. I know that kind of fire, she said, but it burns you more than your opponent. Imani looked away, but she took the hand. After class, Imani lingered. How'd you do that? Miss Yara smiled. Years, mistakes, loss. Imani didn't say anything, but she didn't leave either. Jaden walked over, rubbing his shoulder. I like her, he said with a grin. She's scary, she's lost. Miss Yara replied softly. Like I was. As they locked up that night, Jaden looked at her. Are you scared? She didn't answer at first. Then yes, but not of losing, of remembering. And as the lights went off and the door closed, the tournament loomed closer. She had 1 week. 1 week to become not who she used to be, but who she was always meant to be. The dojo was quiet, too quiet. 1 week before the tournament, and Miss Yara could feel it pressing on her chest like a stone. Every muscle ached, every movement had weight, but it wasn't pain holding her back. It was memory. It was grief. It was everything she had buried to survive. She stood on the mat alone, eyes closed, breathing slow and steady. In her mind, she pictured Keisha's smile, her laugh, the day she earned her yellow belt, the way she shouted "Kuai," with more power than her tiny body should have had, than the accident, the hospital, the silence. Miss Yara opened her eyes sharply. Not now. She moved into her kata block, strike, pivot, breath. The flow helped. Her heart settled. Until the front door opened. It was Imani. Again. This was her 5th day in a row showing up early, before class officially started. She didn't say much, but she was always watching, always testing. You don't stretch, Miss Yara said without looking. I don't need to, Imani said. You will. One day. Silence. Then why do you do this? Like ... You're not a cop, not in the military. You don't even compete. Miss Yara stopped her movement and turned. Who said I don't compete? Imani's eyebrows shot up. You serious? Miss Yara nodded. Next weekend. Imani stared. But you're not like them. You're calm, soft-spoken. You teach kids. You don't talk big. Miss Yara smiled faintly. A lion doesn't need to roar to be dangerous. Imani smirked. That's cold. Truth usually is. From that day forward, Imani trained differently. She started listening, asking questions. Not many, but enough. She watched Miss Yara closely, copying her form, adjusting her own raw style. Jaden noticed too. She's not so wild anymore, he said one night. She's learning to breathe. Miss Yara replied. Then came the letter. Late one evening, after locking up, Miss Yara checked her mailbox and found an envelope. No return address, just her name written in familiar handwriting. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside was a folded piece of notebook paper. The writing was messy, urgent. I don't know if this will ever reach you. I messed up. I should have called. Should have. Written years ago. I left after the funeral because I couldn't breathe in that house. Every corner reminded me of her. I joined a private security firm overseas. Been running from my guilt ever since, but I never forgot you. I never stopped training, and I never stopped blaming myself for not picking her up from school that day like I promised. I'm sorry, Mom. If you're reading this, I'm in town for a few days. If you want to meet, I'll be at the edge of Lincoln Park at 5 p.m. on Saturday. Jordan. Miss Yara sat down slowly on her front steps, the letter shaking in her hand. Jordan, her son, Keisha's big brother, she hadn't seen him in 9 years. The next day at the dojo she trained harder than ever, but her mind wasn't on the mat. It was on the bench under the oak tree at Lincoln Park. Saturday came fast. She stood at the edge of the park, heart pounding, unsure what she'd say. The sun filtered through the trees. Kids laughed nearby. It all felt distant. Then she saw him, taller, thinner, rougher. His beard was thick, his posture alert. But his eyes, they were the same. He turned and froze when he saw her. Mom? She nodded, not trusting her voice. He stepped closer. You look strong. She tried to smile. So do you. They sat in silence for a while. I never hated you, she finally said. I hated myself, he replied. I thought you did too. I hated the silence, she whispered. Not you. He looked down. I started teaching self-defense overseas. Kids, women. It's weird, I never thought I'd follow your path. You didn't, she said softly. You walked beside it. He blinked hard. Are you really fighting again? She nodded. It's not about winning. It's about remembering. Keisha would be proud. That broke her. The tears came quick. He reached out, touched her hand gently. They didn't say much else, but when they parted, something heavy had lifted. Back at the dojo, word had spread. The list of tournament competitors had gone public and Miss Yara's name was on it. The kids were stunned. She's fighting them. I saw one of those women last year. She knocked her opponent out cold. Miss Yara's got guts. Jaden walked in with a grin. You ready to go viral? She rolled her eyes. Let's survive first. Even Mr. Lee looked surprised. You're really doing this? Miss Yara simply said, I have to. That week, the energy at the dojo shifted. Parents started dropping by more. Reporters showed up. A local news crew requested an interview. She declined, gently. This isn't for the cameras, she told them. It's for the ghosts. One evening, after class, Imani approached her. If you win, what then? I don't need to win, Miss Yara replied. I just need to fight. You ever think you're inspiring people? Miss Yara smiled. You ever think that about yourself? Imani paused. Never. You should. The final day before the tournament arrived, the dojo held a small ceremony for her. The students gathered. Mr. Lee lit a single white candle. On the mat, we honor those who train not just to win, he said, but to heal. Miss Yara bowed. The kids clapped. Jaden handed her a small gift, a white ribbon with Keisha's name embroidered in gold thread. I figured, you might want her with you, he said. She hugged him tightly. Thank you. That night, as she packed her bag, she laid out her GI gloves and belt. She placed the white ribbon carefully on top. She stared at the mirror. Old scars, new strength, a quiet fire. She was ready, not just to fight, but to rise. ChatGPT said. The stadium lights were harsh and blinding. Cameras clicked, voices buzzed, the atmosphere was electric. Miss Yara stepped into the waiting room, wrapped in silence. Around her, fighters stretched, shadowboxed, or stared coldly ahead. Most of them were half her age. Taller, stronger, louder, but none of that mattered now. Her name was already announced. She could hear the distant cheer from the crowd, some polite, some confused. Backstage, Jaden adjusted her gloves. You, okay, she nodded. Yes, you don't look nervous. I've already fought harder battles, she said softly. Jaden hesitated. If they hit you hard, don't push it. Tap out, please. Miss Yara gave him a small smile. I'm not here to prove I can take pain. I'm here to show I'm not afraid of it. The bell rang in the distance. Match had ended. A man in a headset came to escort her to the ring. Miss Yara, you're up. She walked slowly through the hallway. Her senses sharpened. She remembered everything, her childhood dojo, the bruises, the days Keisha would watch from the corner, pretending to do homework but always watching her mom. She stepped into the ring. Across from her was her opponent, Danica Frost. Young, confident, a professional, known for her power kicks and brutal knockouts. Danica smirked. You sure you're in the right place, Grandma? Miss Yara just bowed in silence. The bell rang. Danica charged fast, too fast. A front kick aimed at Miss Yara's chest. She sidestepped, pivoted, countered with a low sweep. Danica stumbled, surprised. The crowd reacted instantly. Second exchange, Danica threw a roundhouse. Miss Yara ducked, jabbed, and backed off. She wasn't faster, but she was calmer, measured. By the end of round one, the crowd had changed. People were no longer mocking, they were curious, whispering, who is this woman? Jaden met her at the corner with a towel. You're holding your own. She's impatient, Miss Yara said, breathing steady. That's her weakness. Round two began. Danica came in more aggressively. Now, knees, a spinning kick. One blow landed hard on Miss Yara's ribs. She gasped, but stayed upright. Then Danica got cocky, dropped her guard. Miss Yara snapped forward with a perfectly timed palm strike. The audience gasped. Danica staggered back. "Whoa," the commentator shouted. "That was a textbook strikehold school martial arts, folks." The bell rang. Round 2 over. Miss Yara's side throbbed with pain. She could feel something bruised, but she stood tall. In the final round, Danica grew frustrated. She was losing points, and it showed. She swung wildly. That's when Miss Yara made her move, deflecting, redirecting, letting Danica burn herself out. Then she struck a fast combo shoulder, feint, low kick, elbow tap. Danica hit the mat. Not a knockout. But it was clear. The control belonged to Miss Yara. The bell rang. The judge lifted Miss Yara's hand. The stadium erupted. Cameras flashed. Reporters surged forward. Miss Yara bowed deeply, then walked away without a word. Outside the ring, Mr. Lee was waiting. "You moved like wind and struck like stone," he said, eyes shining. "It's done," she whispered. "Not yet," he replied. "Look behind you." She turned. Imani was standing near the locker room. Behind her, Danica. The young fighter looked different, humbled. Danica approached and extended her hand. "Respect. Seriously, I thought you'd be easy. You weren't." Miss Yara shook her hand. "You'll learn more from losing than winning. Use it." Danica nodded and walked away. Imani stepped forward. "You changed everything tonight." "No," Miss Yara said. "I just reminded people that strength has no age." Back at the dojo, they held a small celebration. Balloons, homemade cake, even Mr. Lee danced. Jaden pulled out his phone. "You're trending. By the way, I don't care. But I do," he grinned. "People need to see this." Imani came over. "Everyone at school saw the fight. People who used to laugh at me, they asked if I trained with you. And what did you say?" "I said yes." Proudly. Miss Yara smiled. "Then that's the real victory." Later that night, she sat alone in the dojo. Lights dimmed. Silence around her. She held Keisha's ribbon in her hands, eyes wet. "We did it, baby," she whispered. "We're still standing." Suddenly footsteps. She turned. It was Jordan. "You were amazing," he said. "You watched every second. You taught me everything without saying a word." He held out an envelope. "There's a school in Kenya. They need a martial arts teacher, self-defense for girls. I said I'd recommend someone." Miss Yara took the paper, stunned. "You think I'm strong enough?" she asked. Jordan laughed. "You flipped a 22-year-old pro fighter in front of the whole world. What do you think?" She looked down at the paper. Maybe this wasn't the end. Maybe it was a new beginning. The wind was warm and dry as Miss Yara stepped off the plane in Nairobi. Her pink GI was folded neatly in her bag. She wore simple clothes, her hair pulled back, her posture calm and proud. It had been 6 weeks since the fight that shook the internet, and the world hadn't stopped calling since. But this wasn't about fame. Not for her. A young woman with a wide smile held a cardboard sign. "Welcome, Miss Yara." Behind her stood 5 girls in simple uniforms, eyes wide with, "Oh, you came." The woman said, "I promised I would," Miss Yara replied softly. They drove through winding roads, past fields and hills, until they reached a small village. The dojo wasn't fancy, it was just a square building with a tin roof and bamboo floor. But the moment Miss Yara stepped inside, she felt it, the spirit of discipline, struggle, and hope. That afternoon, she met the girls. Ages 9 to 17. All of them quiet at first. Some had scars. One wore an old t-shirt as a belt, but all had the same thing in their eyes. Fear and fire. Miss Yara stood at the front and spoke gently. "You don't need to be strong to begin. You just need to begin." They trained day after day. It was hard. Some fell, some cried, but she never raised her voice. She never gave up on them, and soon they didn't give up on themselves. Word spread quickly. A video of a girl doing a flawless shoulder throw went viral. "Trained by the pink GI grandma," the caption read. People laughed, then watched, then cried. Within weeks, the village dojo had visitors from all over, but Miss Yara stayed focused on the girls. Until one evening she returned from training to find a letter waiting on her bed. It was from Jordan. "I found Keisha's journal," it read. "It was hidden inside an old bag. I thought you should read it." Trembling, she opened the notebook. The first page was in Keisha's sharp, slanted handwriting. "Mama is stronger than anyone knows. One day, the world will see it. One day, I will too." Tears blurred her vision. Page after page was filled with sketches of them training, small stories, and dreams Keisha never got to live. But there, on the last page, one note stood out. "If anything happens to me, I want Mama to keep going. For me, for the girls who still have a chance, fight, teach, love, never stop." Miss Yara folded the journal and held it against her chest. The pain was still sharp, but it didn't drown her anymore. It guided her. One morning she was approached by a local teacher. "Would you be willing to train the boys too?" Miss Yara smiled. "Only if they're ready to learn from girls." He laughed. "They've seen the videos. They're begging for a chance." That week, she opened the dojo to everyone, boys, girls, young, old. Soon, the whole village trained. Together, laughter mixed with shouts. Every corner echoed with discipline and joy. Then, something unexpected happened. An international sports foundation reached out. They wanted to sponsor Miss Yara's dojo, build new floors, better equipment, even bring a few of her students to Europe for a global martial arts exhibition. She was stunned. I don't need fame, she told them. We're not offering fame, they replied. We're offering a bigger stage for your message. She thought about it, long and hard. That night, she stood beneath the stars. Imani had sent a voice note from back home. You've inspired more people than you know. Even my school wants to rename the gym after you. Miss Yara laughed. The world had once mocked her pink GI now. It had become a symbol of strength. But as the camera crews arrived and the foundation team began filming her students, she made one thing clear. This dojo isn't about looking perfect. It's about standing back up again and again, even when the world counts you out. Then she looked at her girls, and we've just begun. But as everything was finally falling into place, something changed. Late one evening, a message arrived, from an unknown number. You think you've inspired the world, but some of us haven't forgotten what you really are. Miss Yara stared at the message, cold, unsettling. Then another followed. You walked away from your past, but it's waiting for you. She didn't recognize the number, but the chill in her chest was real. Was it someone from the old dojo? Someone from the night Keisha died? She walked outside, eyes scanning the horizon. In the distance, under the shadows of the acacia trees, a figure stood, still watching, then vanished. The past she thought she buried was returning. The village was asleep, but Miss Yara couldn't rest. That message haunted her. You walked away from your past, but it's waiting for you. For years, she had fought to build something beautiful out of pain. But now, the past was not. It wasn't asking for permission. The next morning, she kept training the kids. She smiled. She corrected their forms. But something in her eyes had changed. A quiet alertness, a shadow of old battles. Then, during lunch break, a visitor arrived. A man in a dark blazer, rough hands, scar over one brow. He stood at the entrance of the dojo watching silently as her students practiced. Yara, he said finally. It's been a long time. She froze. Marco, he gave a dry smile. Still fast, I see. I wasn't sure you'd remember me. How could I forget? She said, her voice calm but tight. Marco had been part of the elite dojo in her past, the same place where her daughter Keisha trained, and died. He stepped forward. We're reopening the circuit. New global championship. They want legends. They want you. I'm not a fighter anymore, but the world thinks you are. You flipped a bully and inspired millions. They want to see more. Miss Yara shook her head. I didn't flip that child to be famous. I did it to protect. Marco stepped closer. You walked away after Keisha died. No answers. No closure. Don't you want to know who really pushed her that night? Her heart skipped. You're lying. Am I? He whispered. Join the tournament. The truth waits at the final stage. She wanted to scream, to say no, but her fingers trembled. That night, she sat alone with Keisha's journal. One sentence echoed again and again. Fight, teach, love, never stop. Maybe this was her final fight. Maybe this was how she'd set Keisha free. The next day, she called a meeting. The dojo students, girls and boys, young and old, gathered in a circle. I'm leaving, she said softly. For now, but only for a few weeks. Gasps, confused looks. I'm joining a tournament, a very old one, a dangerous one. Imani stepped forward. Why, Miss Yara? She looked down, eyes full of love and sorrow. Because there's truth I never faced, pain I never answered, and because your sensei can't teach courage unless she shows it first. The village elders blessed her, the girls cried, the boys saluted her like soldiers, and she left. Weeks passed. The world watched. The pink GI returns trended on every platform. Old rivals emerged. Fighters decades younger, trainers with high-tech gear, sponsors, cameras, contracts. Miss Yara ignored it all. She trained in silence, focused, relentless, and then the day arrived. Finals, the last match. Her opponent, a masked fighter, tall, fast, dangerous. But there was something familiar in the way they moved. When the final round began, the fighter whispered, "You should have stayed away, Yara." Her blood froze. The match was brutal. Spins, throws, counters. Miss Yara was holding her ground but barely. Then, a mistake. She stumbled. The crowd gasped. The masked fighter stood over her, ready to end it. But Yara looked up and said one word, Keisha. The fighter paused. Just for a second. Enough for Miss Yara to twist, counter, and throw them down hard. The bell rang. She had one, but she didn't cheer. Instead, she pulled off the opponent's mask, and her breath caught in her throat. It was a woman, her eyes wide, full of regret. I didn't mean to, the woman whispered. Miss Yara fell to her knees. You were there that night, she said. Yes, the woman choked out. I pushed her, but not to hurt her. It was an accident. We were just fighting hard. I tried to help, but they told me to stay quiet. Tears rolled down Miss Yara's cheeks. All these years, she whispered, I blamed myself. The crowd was silent, the arena frozen in disbelief. The woman dropped her head. I'm sorry. Miss Yara stood up slowly, exhausted. She looked around the arena and then into the cameras, and she said, pain is real, loss is real, but silence is the heaviest burden. She held up Keisha's journal. My daughter wanted me to fight, to teach, to love, and never stop. So today, I forgive, and I begin again. The stadium erupted. Back in the village, kids watched the broadcast on a tiny screen. Imani screamed. The elders wept. Miss Yara didn't return as a champion. Miss Yara didn't return as a champion. As a healer, the dojo grew, the world changed, but the legend remained. An old lady in a pink GI who once flipped a bully, and ended up flipping the whole world. Miss Yara was back in the village, but something had changed. She didn't walk like someone who had just won a championship. She walked like someone who had finally laid a heavy burden down. Lighter, freer. The children surrounded her as she stepped back into the dojo. Imani hugged her first, tightly, crying without words. You kept your promise, she whispered. Miss Yara smiled. And now it's your turn. The kids didn't understand what she meant, at least. Not yet. The dojo was full. Parents, students, even the elders came to welcome her back. Someone brought flowers. Someone played the drum. There was food, laughter, celebration. But Miss Yara's heart wasn't on celebration. She looked at her students. The same ones she had trained, the same ones who had once laughed at her pink GI, and she saw something different in their eyes now. Fire. She waited for the noise to calm. Then she stood. Everyone, she said softly, I have something to say. The room went silent. For many years, I wore this GI to remember someone I lost. I taught because it gave me purpose. But this dojo, this is no longer just about me, she pointed to the kids. They are the reason this place is alive. They are the future. And it's time they face the world not with fists, but with something stronger. What's stronger than fists? A boy asked. Miss Yara looked at him. Discipline, wisdom, unity. Then she made a big announcement. We're opening the doors. This dojo will no longer be just for this village. We will teach kids from other towns. Kids who are bullied, kids who are silent, kids who feel small. Gasps echoed. But sensei, we don't have money for that. Imani said, but Miss Yara nodded. We don't, but I have something more powerful than money. She walked to a small wooden box in the corner, opened it. Inside were medals, trophies, photos, and one gold envelope. My prize money from the championship, she said. We'll use it to rebuild this place, to bring in beds for those who need shelter, to make it a home. The elders stood. One of them, old Bako, wiped his eyes. You are not just a fighter, Yara. You are a mother to this village. The news spread fast. Soon, kids started arriving. Shy kids, angry kids, kids who didn't speak much, kids with bruises on their arms and their hearts. One girl, barely 9, arrived barefoot. She didn't say her name. She just sat in the corner and stared at the wall. Imani tried to talk to her, but she didn't reply. Miss Yara walked over, gently sat beside her. Do you know what this GI means? She asked, pointing to her pink robe. The girl shook her head. It means you don't have to fight to be strong. You just have to stay. The girl looked up, eyes red, and for the first time, she whispered, my name is Luma. From that day, Luma trained every morning with quiet focus. She didn't talk much, but her eyes watched everything, every move, every lesson. Then, one afternoon, something strange happened. Miss Yara received a letter. No name, just a stamp and a note inside. You inspired the world, but not everyone is happy. Watch your back. She showed it to Elder Bako. This is a threat, he said. But from who? Miss Yara asked. Bako looked at the letter again. Then his face darkened. There's a man, he said slowly. He once ran the underground fight circuit in the capital. He lost everything when you exposed them. He disappeared, but maybe not forever. Miss Yara's eyes sharpened. She knew what this meant. This dojo wasn't just a training center anymore. It was a light den. Some people hated the light. The next night, she stayed late, sweeping the floors. The kids were gone. The lights dimmed. Then she heard a sound. Click. The door creaked. Footsteps. She didn't move. She just listened. And then a shadow moved behind her. Fast. She turned, caught the arm just before it reached her. A man, hooded, masked. He tried to pull away. She flipped him hard. The floor shook. She pulled off the mask. It wasn't a man. It was a teenager, eyes wide, terrified. I was sent, he stammered. By who? The boy shook his head. They'll hurt my sister if I talk. Miss Yara, let him go. Sit, she said. She brought him tea. Start from the beginning. And he did. There's a man called Creel, the boy said. He runs fights again. Secret ones. He says you ruined everything. He wants revenge. Miss Yara's jaw clenched. So it hadn't ended in the championship. It was just beginning. Creel wasn't just angry. He was building something dark, dangerous, and he was sending kids to test her strength. She couldn't let it grow, but she couldn't abandon her dojo either. The next morning, she made a decision. I need someone to help lead here, she told Imani. Imani blinked. Me. You're ready, Miss Yara said. You have heart. And now, I have to go again. Where to finish what I started. And so, Miss Yara packed up once more. The kids watched from the gate as she left. Imani stood taller, firmer, a leader now. Miss Yara walked toward the capital not with fear, but with resolve. But just as she reached the outskirts of the city, a car pulled up beside her, a tinted window rolled down, and a voice said, You're late. Miss Yara's eyes narrowed. It was Kriel's lieutenant. The man smiled. You're walking into fire, Yara. She took a breath and replied, good. I was born in fire. The door opened. She got in. And the city swallowed her whole. The car drove through the silent city streets. Miss Yara sat in the back seat, her hands calm, her eyes steady. The man beside her, Kriel's lieutenant, glanced at her but said nothing more. He didn't have to. The message was already clear. They were taking her to Kriel. The city looked different now. Not like the place she remembered from years ago. It was colder, angrier. There were posters for underground fight nights plastered on street walls, some showing bruised faces, others advertising cash prizes. But none of them showed peace, only pain. The car finally stopped outside an old factory. Rusty gates opened slowly as they drove in. Miss Yara could already hear shouting inside. Cheers, screams, the sound of fists hitting flesh. Another illegal fight was happening. She stepped out. A massive crowd was gathered in a circle, yelling as two boys fought brutally in the center. Bare fists. No rules. No honor. Miss Yara's jaw tightened. Kriel was standing above them on a steel platform, watching, like a king. His eyes caught hers. He grinned. He raised his hand and the fight stopped. Everyone turned. Look who's returned, Kriel said, his voice booming. The pink lady herself. The crowd laughed. Miss Yara stepped forward. This isn't a fight. This is a circus. Kriel clapped mockingly, still dramatic, still full of speeches. He walked down from the platform and stood inches from her. You took everything from me. My fighters, my arenas, my money. But I rebuilt it all. Underground. And you're hurting children again, she said quietly. They choose this, he snapped. They come for power, for survival. No, she replied. They come because no one showed them another way. The crowd fell silent. Kriel narrowed his eyes. Still think your little dojo can change the world? How about this fight me right here? If you win, I shut everything down. If you lose, you give me your The crowd gasped. Miss Yara didn't flinch. What are the rules? Kriel smiled coldly. No rules. Just like your students used to fight before you saved them. She looked at the crowd, at the boys watching from the shadows. Some bruised, some hollow-eyed, some too young to be here. She turned back to Kriel. I accept. Someone brought her a GI, not pink. Just plain white. She held it, then looked at Kriel and said, no, I wear mine. She took out her pink GI from her bag and put it on. The same one her sister had gifted her years ago. The same one that made her a joke before she became a legend. Now it was armor. The fight began. Kriel attacked first, wild, brutal like an animal. His punches were fast, heavy, and cruel. He was trying to end it quickly. He wanted a message, but Miss Yara was calm. She dodged, countered, moved with grace. Every motion had purpose. Every step had memory. She wasn't just fighting Kriel. She was fighting for every kid who had ever been broken by the world. Kriel landed a punch. She staggered back, blood dripping from her lip. The crowd cheered, but then something shifted. Miss Yara stood taller. She wiped her mouth. Her eyes blazed, and suddenly Kriel looked unsure. She moved forward, fast. A perfect spin. A flawless throw. Hit the ground with a thud. She didn't stop. She delivered 3 precise moves each, one filled with discipline, not rage. Kriel lay there, gasping. She stood over him. You said no rules. I say no more cruelty. Then she turned to the crowd. You all came for a fight? But you're not fighters. You're survivors, and survivors can be more. She looked at the boys. I have a place, a real one, a safe one. You don't have to bleed to matter. One by one, the crowd began to change. The kids looked at each other, then one stepped forward, then another, and another. They walked past Kriel toward Miss Yara. She didn't smile. Not yet. She knew this was only the beginning. She turned to Kriel. This factory ends tonight. And it did. With the help of the local press, the underground ring was exposed. The police arrived within hours. Kriel was arrested. The factory was sealed, but Miss Yara didn't stay for the news. She took the boys, 30 of them manned, brought them home. To the dojo. Imani stood at the gate when she returned, shocked. Who are they? Miss Yara smiled. Our new students. Some kids in the village looked scared at first. The new boys were rough, loud, broken, but Imani stepped forward. Let's show them how we do things. Over the next few weeks, something beautiful happened. The dojo grew louder, but in a good way. Laughs returned. Lessons echoed. The air was filled with effort, not violence. Lumit, the quiet girl, took one of the toughest boys under her wing. Imani taught the older ones patience, and Miss Yara, she finally rested. Not because her journey was over, but because it had finally begun. But just when peace seemed certain, a package arrived at the gate. No name. Inside, a photo. It was a picture of her old dojo burned years ago, but on the back, someone had written, You stopped Kriel, but I trained Kriel. Miss Yara stared at it, her hands trembling. The real war had just revealed its shadow. Snowflakes landed softly on the windshield as Miss Yara held the small blinking tracker in her hand. The light pulsed red, faint but steady. They weren't alone. What does it mean? Imani asked. Miss Yara turned the device over. It means someone knew we'd come here. Someone who wanted to make sure we didn't leave. Behind them, The old Red Sector facility sat silent, smoke rising from the destroyed files and burnt drills. But the danger hadn't ended. A low hum echoed in the forest. Then headlights. 3 black vehicles rolled down the snowy hill, LICEN, SE plates, tinted windows, and then figures stepped out. Not soldiers, not police, men in suits. Miss Yara narrowed her eyes. Government. No, Kavan's voice said from behind them. He had followed. Private contractors. Ghost Division. The real ones behind Creel. I told you, Yara. I wasn't the monster. I was just the gatekeeper. They built the system. I just trained the dogs. Then what do they want now? Rafi asked, fists clenched. Kavan looked at the blinking tracker. You destroyed their vault. Now they want their leverage back. You, me, and anyone who saw the files. The tallest man in black stepped forward, calm, confident. He didn't carry a weapon, but his presence felt heavier than a gun. Miss Yara, he said, we request your cooperation. We're not here to harm children, but we do require that you come with us for a debriefing. Imani stepped in front of her. Yara gently pulled her back. I'll speak with him, she said. She walked slowly, gracefully, her pink GI fluttering in the cold wind. I don't respond to requests from shadows, she said. Show me a name. The man smiled. You already know it. And then he said it. Orion Lang. Miss Yara froze. That name? A legend. He was once called the Architect, the mind behind the Ghost Division, and one of the 3 men responsible for recruiting Kavan and training operatives like Creel. And even her? She had never met him. Until now. I watched you, Orion said. Since the beginning, we needed to know what your pink method could really do. You surprised us. Turning street fighters into poets, turning fear into focus. You did what we couldn't, and now you want to buy it, she asked. No, he said calmly. We want to erase it. Behind him, 2 more men stepped out. One held a tablet, the other a small cube. That, Luma whispered. Miss Yara didn't blink. A memory extraction unit. They want to scan and wipe. Orion nodded. Too many kids are healing. That's dangerous for our business. And that's when she understood. The system was never just about power. It was about keeping people broken so they'd always need rescuing, always need protection, always be controlled. But not her kids, not today. Run, she whispered. What? Imani said. Run, Yara shouted. The kids scattered into the trees. Kavan stood still. Stunned. Orion raised his hand. His men moved fast. But Yara was faster. One spinning kick took down the nearest guard. She moved like fire, graceful, sharp. Every strike was measured. She wasn't just fighting for herself now, she was protecting a future. Orion watched, amused. He made no move. Then, unexpectedly, Kavan joined her. Guess I'm tired of being someone else's dog, he muttered. Together, they fought with perfect rhythm. Old enemies, now united by one truth. Control was no longer power. Compassion was vague. Held off the first wave, but more were coming. Yara knew they couldn't win this fight. Forever suddenly shouting from the hill, Rafi, Imani, Luminon behind them. Every student from the DOJO. Dozens, in their mismatched some barefoot, some shaking, but all ready. They stood in a long line, arms raised, balanced in fighting stances. It was a silent revolution. Orion blinked, children standing not in fear, but in strength. Yara shouted, this is what you were afraid of. Not fists, not flames, but hearts that no longer need your fear. And the kids began moving, not in violence but in unity. Their kata flowed like a single wave, peaceful, powerful. It was art. Orion lowered his hand. Retreat, he said. But, sir, one guard protested. Retreat, Orion roared. This war is over. We already lost. The cars backed away. The forest fell silent again. Yara collapsed to her knees. Exhausted, Imani rushed to her. Are you okay? Yara smiled. I've never been more okay. Kavan sat beside her. Now what? She looked at the kids, some hugging, some crying, some laughing. We build something bigger. Asterisk, asterisk. 2 months later. Asterisk, asterisk. The dojo had doubled in size. A new wing had opened. The Pink Path Center for kids coming out of violence, abuse, and trauma. There were beds, books, therapy rooms, and one massive training hall painted not in red or black, but pink. Became a junior instructor. Rafi helped design the outreach program. Luma began recording their training to post online, hoping to inspire other children. Miss Yar, she taught every morning, meditated every noon, and every evening. Sat on the porch with her tea, watching her students grow into warriors of peace. One day, a letter arrived. No return address. Inside. A photo. It was the kids lined up smiling, holding wooden boards they had broken with kicks and words painted on them. Fear, shame, anger, silence, and one board, held by Imani, simply read, Thank you, Miss Yar. Tears welled up. She placed it beside her teacup. No message was needed. Her story had gone from mockery to mastery to legacy. The woman they laughed at in pink had changed the world with softness. One heart at a time.